Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and friends beyond the binary, it's time for the podcaster who might be a dog sleep podcaster hobbyist, or just like, I guess I'm an accidental dog sleeper. Some people are dog walkers. I put dogs to sleep, and my dog's been snoring since my mouth opened. She said, if you're not going to pet me, I'm going to... And then there's this interesting sound of her snoring. But that's it. What am I talking about? Who am I? Where are you? Well, welcome. It's time for Sleep With Me, the podcast that puts you to sleep. Hey, are you up all night tossing, turning, mind racing, trouble getting to sleep, trouble staying asleep? Well, welcome. This is Sleep With Me, the podcast that puts you to sleep. We do it with a bedtime story. All you need to do is get in bed, turn out the lights, and press play. We're going to do the rest. What we're going to attempt to do is create a safe place where you could set aside whatever's keeping you awake, whether it's thoughts, feelings, physical sensations, changes in time or temperature, routine, whatever's keeping you awake. So anything physical, anything on your mind or in your feelings, or situational, transitory, or, dictionary related. Because it's well, you could be going through, anything, what you're going through. Even if you don't, even for me, baffling stuff, or baffles. I think it's been a while since we talked about baffles before. That's what I would say over the breakfast table, to my, I'd say, you know what? I feel like it's been forever since we've talked baffles. Could we just sit down and, baffle one another? Honey, I'd love to just shower you with baffles. As a matter of fact, I would. I'd love to baffle you in baffles, but I got to get these new listeners. Then I'll get back, baffle me. But that's what I would say. That's what, on the day we met, that was the thought bubble in my head. Really? Oh, wait, you're a figment of my imagination, right? Because I said, wait a second, this is it. This is it. If you're a new listener, excuse me. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to try to create a safe place for you to set aside whatever's keeping you awake. I'm going to send my voice across the deep, dark night. I'm going to use lulling, soothing, creaky, dulcet tones, pointless meanders. There will be baffling, you will be baffled, and there will be baffling moments. Well, there will be times where I question that, though. I say, well, what's one step removed from baffling? You say, is it buffling? Baffling. Baffle's an A. Baffle probably starts with an O. But maybe. But anyway, yeah, probably be some baffling. Buffling. Buffling sounds something like it could be food related. Or, I don't know, you say traveling. Well, I was moving, yeah, that was the buffalo effect. That was the sound you heard on the train. It was a buffalo effect. Sure it wasn't the Doppler effect? No, the Doppler effect's a totally different thing. The buffalo effect is, it's made up by Scoots. It has nothing to do with sound waves. It's when you're looking out the window, daydreaming. Are your daydreams moving at the same speed as the train or not? Now I'd say they're moving at the same speed as your heart. And that's caused by the buffling effect. It's an example of the buffling effect. Well, what's the example of you going off topic so quickly into the intro? Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm baffled what we'd call that. What's it when you pander to a pun? A punder. That's when I say, well, I'm going to pun. Oh, that's another... word I use in my, you say, oh yeah, ponder. Oh boy. Let's see. Punderware. Of course we had to fit that in. I was trying to get some space between one thing and the other. Let's say, well, what would punderware be? And he'd say, well, it's pretty close to like a lot of underwear now. Or underoos were more, they weren't puns. They may have had, you had like your heroes and heroines. Punderwear, it's it's undergarments for people I don't know. I'm not a good punist, so I don't know what I would like, how I'd make a pun about punderwear by using a pun. That's why probably have to find a business to partner with. Okay, so let me get back to the new intro with all my word making up. So if you're new, I'm glad you're here. Let me tell you a couple of things about this podcast. It can be a bit different. It's here to keep you company while you fall asleep, while you drift off. I'm here to be your bore friend, your bore bae, your bore cuz. And what I propose to do is keep you company. Here's what to expect from the show. Now, it doesn't work for everybody, so if you're listening, if you can, give it a few tries. That's what most reviewers say. It took 2 or 3 tries. It's nothing on my needs level. I'd really want this podcast to help you and work for you. If you listen to once and move on, or if you listen to 2 or 3 times, I just want to help you fall asleep. So give it a few tries. I guess I'm saying I don't have an agenda in saying that, other than trying to help you fall asleep. And, maybe, I'll have some underwear to sell one day. If I say, come on, pun brain, wake up, and give me a underwear-related pun for the love of puns. You say, sorry, I'm still trying to think anything buffle and boffle related. You say, I think the part of my brain is playing boffle ball, like a bit like wiffle ball. You see, is that anything like pickleball? No, boffle ball is like way more mellow it's like mellower than wiffle ball. Not quite like Nerf, okay. Oh, you're right. I got to get back to the new listeners. So podcast's a little bit different. Structurally, what to expect. Show starts off with business. That's how we keep it free for everybody that needs it. It really is a service that's just supported by the people that support the sponsors and support the show on Patreon. And then there's an intro, which we're probably like halfway through. And the intro is just me kind of rambling about trying to describe what the podcast is and going off track. That's like my side of it. Your side of it is it's here to ease you into bedtime while you get ready for bed, while you're just getting into bed to get settled. And here's really like part of it is like I find the idea of an instant sleep solution contradictory in some sense. Now, if this podcast puts you to sleep right away, that's great. I mean, especially if you support it, but I don't know that that's realistic for everybody. So I'm here to do what I've seen work for some people, which is ease you into bedtime, drain some of the seriousness out of the room if I can, barely maybe make you smile or make a neutral look on your face. While you get comfortable, I try to describe what the podcast is for like 12 minutes and never get to the point. So that goes into the other 2 elements about the show. You don't really need to listen, and there's no pressure to fall asleep. I'm here for an hour to keep you company as you drift off and mildly entertain you. So if you can't sleep, I'm going to be here. And if you can, I'm going to be here. Either way, I'll even be here like on call. Like you could set your sleep timer for 55 minutes or 45 minutes, or some people set it for 8 hours. But I'll still be here on call if you wake up and you need me. So I'm here to keep you company. So show starts off with the intro. Then tonight it'll be our ongoing episodic series, Big Farm in the Sky, PI. Is that right? Episodically modular, correct. Between the intro and the show is business as well, and then there's thank yous at the end. So it's a structure show. Those are the kind of rules around the show, like non-rules. Don't need to listen. No pressure to fall asleep. And I do make the show, like I was trying to say before, because sometimes sleep can be baffling, where I say, don't know why I can't get to sleep. I really prefer to get right to sleep. And then I was thinking about nice words. I think I fell in love with those words. I don't know if anybody else heard that. What were the words I fell in love with? Not punderwear. I just find that makes me giggle on the inside. Baffling. First, we were talking to an expert on buffling. I mean, maybe not. Maybe it's just what I can't remember from 6 minutes ago. Oh, yeah. And then I said, baffle me. And then I said, okay, that part of my brain says, baffle me. pander to my puns. These are all could be catchphrases. If I had a catchphrase-based podcast, you say pander to my puns, baffle me, baby. This is pushing it, but it is kind of the thing about the podcast. This is the truth. Baffle me all night long in my punderwear. There you go. That would be a catchphrase for the podcast. Or your pajamas, punder jays. You say some people have punderoos. We have punder jays. Also, a new bird they just discovered. They were trying to decide whether to name it after Stephen Colbert or a nonsense word Scoots made up. Scoops. Oh no, Scoops. Bummer. I thought it was me. And oh no, it wasn't. That was the name of the scientist. Her name was Dr. What do we call it? Punderjay, Dr. Punderjay. Well, I'm glad she discovered that bird. Could I pretend at least it's named after a nonsense word I made up? Oh no, they're final. Okay, well, I just won't ever say that word again. Punderjay. Well, like, except when I write an ode to, because you can't, like, if it's poetry, I can use the word. It's a lowercase Punderjay. Oh, Punderjay, your call that I've never heard. Actually, it's interesting that I'm having an ode to a bird because there are birds in this episode coming up. Your sleepy call, deep in your nest. I yearn to sleep as you do, Punderjay, my Punderjay. Okay, well, yeah, it probably needs some work, especially since I would be a better ode if I was familiar with the life of a Punderjay. How about Punderbear? Okay, good. I've had enough. Should I go back to, what was the other word I was making up? Baffling and baffling. We could listen to one day. This would be my all-inclusive vacation spot. See the Punderjays play baffle ball at, what would we call it? Casa de Scoots? So what are the names of some Air Z and Z? That's actually a pun. There's some part of my brain thought of. Couldn't come up with any puns about punderwear. But when you talk about an easy pun, but it was witty, I'd give it to you. But, okay, so anyway, I guess my puns have petered out. Or I'm tuckered from all that punning around. And around a baffle ball. It was the rules of that game are baffling. You're correct. That's the whole intention of it. And that's the intention of the show, is to keep you company, to be a bit confusing, and to help you drift off, to be here at your side. Yeah, that's it. I work very hard. I yearn and I strive, and I really want to help you fall asleep. Thanks again for coming by. And here's a couple of ways we keep the show going. Hey, are you up all night tossing, turning, mind racing, trouble getting to sleep, trouble staying asleep? Well, welcome. This is Sleep With Me, the podcast that puts you to sleep. We do with a bedtime story. All you need to do is get in bed, turn out the lights, and press play. I'm going to do the rest. What I'm going to attempt to do is create a safe place where you could set aside whatever is keeping you awake, whether it's thoughts you're thinking about, things on your mind. So thoughts, feelings, either physical sensations or emotions bubbling up, or both. It's one of those things. It could be whatever's keeping you awake, travel, crows, not always, but crowing, or what are the other ones called? The cockadoodle doers. Whether it's on the inside or the outside, how's that sound? Or, for me, it's usually both. You say, or the mysterious wake-ups, or not so mysterious ones. Whatever's keeping you awake, I'd like to take your mind off of that. What I'm going to do, I got a safe place here. As I like to say on a regular basis, I smooth it, I pat it, I rub it down. I say safe place. I say BBD. I say BBD. How about this one? What if BBD, Belle Biv DeVoe, went on tour with BB-8 and I like to think about BB-8 and BB-88.
Talk about Motown Philly being back again. You got more alliteration in there if I knew how to define alliteration, I'd know what to do with. We'll try to ponder that. Maybe we could get BB-8 or Bill. BB-88 is the one that actually comes into the studio to talk. But let's see. What I'm gonna do is I got that safe place, smooth and padded down. And those are references that cover like 3 generations, maybe. You say, well, I don't know who BBD is, Scooch. I remember my dad wore BVDs. No, doesn't have any. I remember those ads too. Anyway, okay, so I'm going to send my voice across the deep, dark night. I'm going to use lulling, soothing, creaky, dulcet tones, pointless meanders, superfluous tangents, whatever that was. That was a natural one because I was trying to think of something. I don't know if that's considered like a mutter or a stutter. Like A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S. So it'd probably be something in between a mutter and a stutter. So a nutter, no. L, M, N, O, utter, maybe. L, M, N, O, P, putter. Yeah, I guess it was a putter. I was puttering around with my words. L, M, N, O, P, Q, quarter. I mean, my mind is quartered. Believe me. QRS, rudder, T, UV. Oh, wait, no, QRS. Okay, so sorry, I got distracted there. Let me use extra words. I'm going to go off topic. Now, if you're new, you might already be saying, and this is legitimate, you have a cause to say this. What in the heck is going on here? What is this person talking about? So let me give you a couple pieces of information. One, this kind of podcast is not, again, every word's got to have a definition. I would say passive. This podcast is best passively consumed, but it's best consumed somewhere between passively and actively. Like when you're chilling, you say, well, I'm not passive, but I'm not active. I'm chilling. You know, people used to chillax. I think that was invented by, like Judd Apatow and Seth Rogen, a couple other people whose names escape me because my mind just blanked. Where was I? Man, sometimes I get so lost in my own thoughts. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to be here. Oh, if you're new, this podcast doesn't make any sense, and neither do I. So kind of look at it like you're saying, what is that? And then I'll tell you the structure of the show. So then you have another piece of information. The show starts off with a few minutes of business. That's how we keep it free for everybody. It's the people that choose to take action. They help keep us free for everybody. That's a great system, huh? Then there's an intro. Now, the intro is around 12 to 13 to 14 to 15 to 11 to 17 to 16 minutes or so of me just puttering around. And you'd say, are you going to get to the point? Well, I'm kind of puttering. I think you don't really hear like the only things you hear about puttering are old fashioned cars in cartoons and characters in cartoons. And I guess I'd say a putter is like a car that goes putter, 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 putter. That's a good name for a pet too. We had Pitter and Patter. Remember? Regular listeners will remember or note that I like to encourage people to name their pets. It seems like I'm always naming pets that are like purchased at the same time or imaginary twin pets. So I said, if you have 2 pets, you could name them Pitter and Patter. Now, let's just say, for example, you had 2 kitties. Are those what they're called? Kittens. And they were named Pitter and Patter. Or, bunny. Yeah, let's say bunnies. And then you got a third, maybe a couple of years later, name it Putter. And actually, Putter's the name of a character, one of my, on the movie Billie Jean. So that's also cool. So where was I? Okay, so I went off. Oh, I just putter around. That's what I was saying. So that's the intro where I kind of try to explain what the podcast is. Most listeners use it to ease into bedtime as they get ready for bed or as they're in bed, like getting ready to drift off. It's different every time, but it's familiar because they say, okay, here's what I'm a regular listener. I listen to 680 episodes of Sleep With Me. Here's what I know is going to happen in the intro. Scoots is going to talk. He's going to try to explain what the podcast is. He's going to use the words lulling, soothing, creaky, dulcet tones, and pointless meanders. He's going to send his voice across the deep, dark night. And he'll putter. I guess I never called it that before, but he'll putter around. And then the episode may start and I may drift off. Tonight we'll be talking about, so that's the intro. And if you're new, you could say, when the heck is the Game of Thrones stuff going to start? Or when are you going to, and I say, well, it takes a while, just like getting into bed. I want to get you comfortable. I want to get you, I want to give you time to get cozy. Now, a few percentage, I can't remember what it is, like 2 or 3% of people just skip, they start the episode at like 18 or 20 minutes. And if you do that, there'll be some business between the intro and the show. Then we'll be talking about Game of Thrones. But if you don't watch Game of Thrones or you say, well, I'm not so sure about that. Don't worry. I'll be talking in the most meandering, indirect way about everything. Then we'll talk about some factoids that may have come up in the episode or that I'm curious about. Then we'll talk to Tom and Pounce. Then we'll have Parade of the Old Gods and the New. And then we'll have some thank yous. So that's the structure of the show. If you're new, also a couple of things. You don't need to listen to this podcast. This is the only podcast you don't have to pay attention to. You don't have to pay attention to, or you don't have to listen. You could say, well, I'm going to turn you down to a mutter, I prefer a mutter over a putter. And your stutter. And I'd say, okay, go ahead and turn it down a little if that works for you. But I'm going to be here to help him. Be here to keep you company. Whether you like a mutter or putter, or you say, well, okay, and I've had enough of your stutters. And so that's the structure of the show. Oh, you don't need to listen to me. And there's no pressure to fall asleep. The reason the shows are over an hour, for the most part, is because I want to give you plenty of time. So there's no pressure. I'm going to be here till the end. So you can kind of say, well, I don't know if I'm ready to fall asleep. Maybe I'm just going to listen for a little while and let Scoots keep me company. And I'd say, that's fine. Just drift off at your leisure. That's the way the show works. You fall asleep whenever you want. Maybe ideally, you don't even know it. You're listening to me. You're wondering if I'm going to go back to pitter and patter and putter. And we need a character. Potter, pets, pitter, patter, and putter. And then we need another word that putter, pitter, patter, putter, potter, prodigiously pets, pitter, and putter, and patter, ponder. Pondering, puttering, pondering, putter, prodigiously patting, pitter and patter and putter. Or you could just say pitter, patter, putter, pitter, patter, and putter. Maybe that's not quite a tongue twister. But ideally, the podcast is a bit of a mind twist, mind twister. Or whatever, not a mind. I say that sounds a little bit, I say, yeah, more like a mind meander. So that's the structure show. That's what to expect. You can also expect me maybe in another episode to talk to BB-8 and BBD and see if we could get them to get working together. But yeah, that's all. I mean, I guess that's basically it. And the reason I make the show, the reason I'm here is because I've always wanted someone when I couldn't sleep and when I can't sleep. I really just want someone to say, hey, that stinks. I can see, can't sleep there. How about if I sit here and tell you a little story? How about if I just keep you company and try to take your mind off stuff? Because I really think you deserve a good night's sleep. You deserve a nice place to rest and get comfortable. And I don't know what else I could do, but I could sit here and keep you company and tell you a little story about a TV show I watch. And you say, well, what's the TV show? Well, Game of Thrones. Oof, that sounds too exciting. Well, not when I talk about it. More, I call it Game of Drones. And really, I just drone on. I mean, if you're ever curious about, me not like a TV show, and if you ever had the experience of watching a movie and then not watching it for 20 years, and then 20 years later watching it again, and you say, I watched that movie? That's kind of like when I talk about the TV show. If you see it after I talk about it, or before, you'd say, Scooch, you were watching the same episode as me? I mean, the only time I thought of that was when you talked about all of the jaw lines on all of the characters of the show. I mean, I definitely noticed, well, I guess everyone has a jawline in some sense. So, are you sure you were watching Game of Thrones, Scoots? You weren't watching like a channel where nothing was on? Nope, that was Game of Thrones, season 8, maybe. I mean, I'm pretty sure. Probably watched it 4 times. Oh, wow, you watched the episode more than once. It sounded like you maybe barely, like, are you sure you didn't watch it, like, on an airplane, on someone's airplane TV, like 4 rows in front of you without any audio? Yeah, no, I watched it, yeah. Oh, good. Well, I guess it's working then, because it put me right to sleep. So that's the show. I'm here to keep you company, take your mind off stuff as you drift off. I'm glad you're here. Give it a few tries if you're new. That's what almost everyone says. Here's the thing. I really want to help you fall asleep. It's that simple. I believe you, like I said, you deserve it. You deserve it. You need it. You need your sleep, and I want you to get it. If it doesn't work for you, I'm sorry. You could go to sleepwithmepodcast.com/no thank you to check out some other stuff. But really, that's it. I'm glad you're here, and I work very hard. I yearn and I strive, and I hope I can help you fall asleep. Thanks for coming by. And here's a couple of ways we keep the show going. Or to get on with the show. What is it I normally say? Normally after this, I say, hey, are you up all night tossing, turning, mind racing, trouble getting to sleep, trouble staying asleep? Well, welcome. This is Sleep With Me, the podcast that puts you to sleep. We do it with a bedtime story. All you need to do is get in bed, turn out the lights, and press play. I'm going to do the rest. What I'm going to attempt to do is create a safe place where you could set aside whatever's keeping you awake, whether it's thoughts, feelings, physical sensations, changes in time or temperature, routine. You know, your routine could be on traveling. Someone else could be traveling. It could be seasonal stuff. Whatever's keeping you awake, I'd like to take your mind off of that. What I'm going to do, I got this nice safe place set aside, plenty of room, but also roomy but cozy at the same time. And I'm smoothing it, I'm patting it, I'm rubbing it down, I'm saying safe place. And then I'm going to send my voice across the deep, dark night. I'm going to use lulling, soothing, creaky, dulcet tones, pointless meanders, superfluous tangents, a go off topic. Believe me, holy, I'll get distracted. Just like those great, what are those called? Fairy tales? Are there any famous fairy tales? Because I was thinking of the one with Alice in Wonderland. Because she went down, but I said, maybe she didn't go down a rabbit hole. I mean, she was chasing that hare around, but more she was trying to keep up with it, I believe. For me, I have multiple hares, running around inside my head. Bunnies, rabbits, cutie poos. I don't even know. I say, what kind of mammal are you? Cutie poo? And I say, really? And I say, you mind if I stop and ask you a question? Sure, but you're in the middle of a podcast intro. Okay, cutie poo, maybe I'll come back to you, because I was going to ask you a question about, never mind, you're right, it'll bring us way off topic. Well, go ahead, ask me it anyway. It'll be a good example for the new listener of how you go off topic so early. Well, thanks, cutie poo. Maybe we could make this a meta thing where we talk and do the intro. Sounds great. Well, so I was thinking there's something before my time. It was called a Cupid doll. And now that I say it, I thought it was spelled like cutie poo. That's interesting. You think Cupid pie and cutie poo are spelled the same way, huh? Well, now, not that I'm saying it out loud in front of a bunch of people. I can picture reading Cupid pie. And now I think I can see it is like KEW or something. But I was just wondering if you knew what that was, because I don't actually know. I think it's something you would win at a state fair in like the 1940s or 20s or 40s or 50s. Okay, well, listen, to new listeners, Scoots apologizes if you're a fan of Cupid dolls.
Also, here's another question for you. I know we're supposed to get to the intro, but do you know who Astro Boy is? Scooter, I do, because yes, Scooter. Thanks, Cutie Poo. Go ahead, Scooter. Well, I was just thinking, do Cupid dolls and Astro Boy look the same? Because in my mind, they do. Okay, well, anyway, Scooter, what were you going to tell the new listeners? Oh, what I was going to tell them is, I'm going to send my voice across the deep dark night, lulling, soothing, creaky dulcet tones, or Cupid doll-like tones, but I don't know what the Cupid doll sounds like. Okay, Scooter, keep going. Yeah, and I'm going to send my voice across the deep dark, lulling, soothing, creaky dulcet tones, pointless meanders, and all I'm going to do is try to keep you company as you drift off to dreamland. Okay, great job, Scooter. Thanks, Cutie Poo. I think I'll take it from here. If I have any more questions, I'll get back to you. But if you find anything out about Astro Boy or Cupid dolls, get back to me, okay? Sure, Scooter. Okay, sorry about that, folks. If you're a new listener, I got distracted. If you're a regular listener, you're like, Scoots, hardy har, like, you're probably giggling. Or you're like me, you're like, I can see the spelling of Cupid. It's like you know, when I had Cutie Poo here, I should have asked if it was like a kiwi and cutie pie were Cupid. Anyway. Oh, sorry. So if you're a new listener, I'm here to keep you company and take your mind off of stuff as you fall asleep. A couple of things to know about the show. I go off topic pretty regularly. I have creaky dulcet tones, and that's not for everybody. But give the show a few tries to see if it works for you. Structurally, what to expect. The show starts off with a few minutes of business. That's how we keep it free. Is all the wonderful regular listeners that support the sponsors. Then there's an intro, which is about 12 to 14 minutes of me rambling. Or, well, really what it is like, ideally I would explain it's a I don't know what it is. It's like a ball of string that's all knotted up. If it was a metaphor about the podcast, it would be one that was like that. You see, I don't think every pair of headphones I've ever owned. There's a metaphor for, you say, Scoots, what's the intro? And I'm just holding up every pair of headphones with cords. But even then, I bought a pair of Bluetooth headphones that you're supposed to stick in your ears. Not the expensive one, of course, because I said, well, I'm not going to pay that much. And even those don't have a cord, they just they only attach to my phone for like 4 minutes, and then they go boop boop. And I say, what? And then I Google and I say, how do you Google boop boo? And every time I've tried to Google, this kind of headphone makes a boo boo sound and then disconnects from Bluetooth. You know, it's the same thing, repowered over. So where was I? Oh, if you're a new listener, I tend to go off topic. The intro, structurally, business, and then there's an intro. And the intro's around 12 minutes. We're probably like 6 or 7 minutes into it now. And it's just a friendly wind down to start the show off. Exactly the opposite of warming up. But it's warm. It's warm-hearted. You know, I'm glad you're here. Hey, hardy har, I'm here to keep you company. But like a cool breeze of senselessness, kind of like when this is actually one of the times advertising is actually correct, is when you get the right breath mint, and then you suck on it, and then you breathe in. You see, holy cow, that is like a mountain breeze. Mountain breeze breath mints, the newest breath mint from the whatever company wants to invent those and pay me. Company. Mountain breeze, like a mountain breeze in your mouth, but it smells better. You know, because a lot of mountain breeze would have like yak dung and stuff in there. Okay, so the intro is like a long explanation of the podcast. A few percentage of listeners skip over it, but most listeners use it as a wind down, and then a few percentage of listeners fall asleep during the intro. I think most of those are people that support the show on Patreon, though. And but there's really no wrong way to use the podcast. But like most of the people, they use it to wind down, and then there'll be a story. Tonight it'll be me trying to remember the plot of the movie Top Gun, that famous Anthony Edwards movie with Tom Cruise in it. With Val Kilmer and a couple other people. Well, Michael Ironside, of course. So that'll be and then there'll be some thank yous and the good nights. Between the intro and the story is business. And that's the structure of the show. Now, what else to expect if you're new? Well, I'm glad you're here. Like I said, it doesn't work for everybody. Give it a few tries. And I'm not saying that because it benefits me at all. I just really want you to get a good night's sleep, and that's what most listeners say. And you getting a good night's sleep really, on a spiritual level, does benefit me. I say that's great. If the podcast puts you to sleep or you find something else, if you're looking for other options other than this podcast, or you loathe this podcast, you're listening, you say, I loathe this podcast, sleepwithmepodcast.com/no thank you. There'll be some other options there. That's because I'm really here to help. So that's what structurally to expect. You don't need to listen to me. I think you probably figured that part out. And there's also no pressure to fall asleep. I'm here for an hour, but with other episodes, I could be here for 10 hours if you need me. Yeah, back to back to back to keep you company. If you can't fall asleep, I'm your bore friend. I'm your bore bae. I'm your bore buzz. Your bore buzz. It sounds like sounds like they could be another super bore buzz. It's like my sidekick, like Astro Boy. Oh, Astro Cupie Pie. Oh, you're not Cupie Pie? I don't know. I've lost contact with Cutie Poo. Ran off with the rest of the rabbits in my brain and the bunnies. Oh, thanks for rubbing your ears on me. That was great. It made me forget what I was talking about. Oh, bore bud, your bore sib, your bore cuz, your bore bestie. I'm here to keep you company as you drift off, because I truly believe you deserve a good night's sleep. You deserve a life where you can flourish, and you could treat yourself and other people with kindness, dignity, and respect. So I'm here to do my little part, which is just rambling and keeping you company. And I think that's it. So no pressure to fall asleep, no pressure to listen. Structurally, show is a bit of a headphone jumble. And I think that's it. Cutie Poo, can I just grab you for 1 second? Sure, Scooter. What can I help you with? Here's something I got a question for. Is there I don't know how your vocabulary is compared to mine, but long floppy ears is a nice term, but is there a better term for your ears? Because they're magnificent is a word I would use, or luxurious, because they're not just long and floppy doesn't do it. Do you agree with me? Well, thanks, Scooter. We found over the years that the great myth, there's a mythos behind saying long floppy ears, and most bunny owners are bunny fans or bunny appreciators like yourself. You get it. It's the words have become. Is there a word for when the words become more than their own meaning? Scooter, you'd have to ask Helen that question. Yeah, I always get nervous asking her questions, so I just listen to her podcast and forget. Is it je ne sais quoi? Scooter, I don't think it is, but what about, I know it's not zeitgeist, but I like, that one I feel like just makes me look, Scooter, zeitgeist sounds nice when you say it. What about long floppy ears that I want to rub my cheeks against? Scooter, that's different than what the meaning of the word is. Okay, anyway, that's Cutie Poo. There's some sort of bunny-like being that lives within my imagination. Thanks, Scooter. I'm going to be hopping around. Hold on, Cutie Poo, are you, is that a unicycle you're hopping around on? Scooter, it is. It is. I'll see you later. Okay, so that was Cutie Poo. We didn't really get any questions answered about Cupie Pies or Astro Boy, but I'm pretty sure those two look pretty similar, or that at some point there was a Cupie Pie Astro Boy doll in my life. I think that's Tezuka. Is that correct? But anyway, get them off topic. So anyway, I'm glad you're here. I really want to help you fall asleep. This podcast, unfortunately, doesn't work for everyone. So I said, check out sleepwithmepodcast.com/no thank you. But give it a few tries. I work very hard at Yearn and I Strive because I want to help you fall asleep. Thanks for coming by. And here's a couple of ways we keep the show going. Hey, are you up all night tossing, turning, mind racing, trouble getting to sleep, trouble staying asleep? Well, welcome. This is Sleep With Me, the podcast that puts you to sleep. We do with a bedtime story. All you need to do is get in bed, turn out the lights, and press play. I'm going to do the rest. What I'm going to attempt to do is create a safe place where you could set aside whatever's keeping you awake, whether it's thoughts, feelings, physical sensations, changes in time or temperature, whatever's keeping you awake, travel, any of those things. I'm going to be here to take your mind off of stuff. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to send my voice across the deep, dark night. I'm going to use lulling, soothing, creaky, dulcet tones, pointless meanders, superfluous tangents, extra mumbles or accidental mumbles. I'm going to tumble. Actually, I think I've talked about it. I'm going to stumble over words and I'm going to tumble over them. The word tumbler. I think that could be multiple things. What do you call it when a kid puts Scrabble things, tiles in a rock tumbler? Well, I'd call it I would rename the rock tumbler the word tumbler. Well, no, why not the letter tumbler? What do you call it when you put boggle letters in a podcast piece of artwork? You call it the illusionist. If you put them in a rock tumbler, though? I don't know. Okay, here's a question. What would be more soothing? The sound of tumbling rocks in a rock tumbler, which doesn't have much sound from what I can recall. The sound of Scrabble tiles in a rock tumbler? That sounds like that sounds like a middle of a middling poem. Your sweet voice is like the sounds of Scrabble tiles in a rock tumbler, he said to her over coffee. I guess it would be dialogue in one of my screenplays. And then he stood and turned, his hips leading the way. The hips, he realized as he walked off, he never felt in 40 years. Today was the day. That's a little bit of the boy who discovered his hips. Coming soon to a theater in my imagination. But also, what is like? Okay, let me get to the new listeners first, then we could contemplate these things. So we'll come back to all this. But so if you're new, hey, welcome to Sleep With Me. It's a podcast to put you to sleep. It's a little bit different. You probably already noticed that. So let me give you a couple of things to know. I'm glad you're here, and I hope I can help you or be here as you fall asleep, keep you company. So the show, if you like, you try to, it's almost better to kind of almost passively consume it. It's just like having rock tumbling as a hobby. You'd say, what is this, Scoots, what are the Venn diagrams of Sleep With Me's, psychographics and demographics? Tell me more about it. Well, you'd say, well, most of the listeners are good people, wonderful people, if you ask me. Even the new listeners are great, very conscientious people, or whatever that word is, kind, intelligent. All those listeners are intelligent, looking for a good night's sleep, likely to support causes and support building the community they want to see. That's Sleep With Me's demographics and psychographics. People that do nice stuff, pick up after themselves. Those are all. And also, majority of listeners owned a rock tumbler at one point in their lives. So that's about it. That's our demographics. So if you're a new listener, they tend to go off topic. Structurally, what to expect with the podcast. It starts off with a few minutes of business. That's key to keeping it free for everybody. And then there's an intro. We're about like 5 minutes into the intro. And the intro is where I try to explain what the podcast is, but then something always pops up in my mind, like rock tumblers, which make an appearance like every 200 or so episodes. And then sometimes they'll make, then then I'll have rock tumbler on the brain. What's the most common item? What's the 50th most common item to see at a garage sale? Rock tumbler. Factoids, made up factoids, live. Fun facts, as Janet would say. Fun fact, rock tumbler is actually a rock roller, technically. Commonly referred to as rock barrels within the community that lives in Scooter's imagination. Oh, so new listeners. So there's an intro where I try to explain what the podcast is for about 15 minutes. And some people, when they first get to the podcast, will be like, is he ever going to get to the point? Well, I'll try, and I won't quite achieve that. That's what the intro kind of is. When's the Game of Thrones talk going to start? Well, I just mentioned it, but later in about 12, 14 minutes, we'll shift from the intro to the Game of Thrones discussion. If you don't watch Game of Thrones, don't worry about it. This will mildly resemble Game of Thrones. Won't even talk about, any like stuff like, oh, what am I going to do now? Kind of stuff like, what am I going to watch next? Don't worry. Well, it'll be totally devoid of, I got to get back to talking about rock tumbling, so don't think about that Game of Thrones so we'll talk about that. The intro is like a lot of listeners use it as part of their wind down, because you say, why do you try to explain the podcast for 12 to 15 minutes? And I'd say, well, where else in the great podcast community, other than those wonderful rock-specific rock tumbling podcasts, like Rock Tumbling Today, Rock Tumbling, Don't Come Knocking If This Rock Tumbler Is a Rockin'. Those are some of my favorites. Binge Mode, Rock Tumbler Edition. Cast of rock tumblers, bald move, talking tumblers. That's one of, like, they also talk about drink tumblers. So that's like a broader. So those are some of the rock tumbling podcasts. What was I I was trying to explain Sleep With Me. Where else am I going to get those plugs in? Tumble To Me. That was a good one. It's not around anymore. Talk Tumble To Me. That was a couple. This was one of the ones I can't believe it didn't make it big time. It was a couple. One rock tumbler enthusiast. One person not interested in rock tumbling, and they worked with then there was a third party professional, and they learned, they like went out through the lens of rock tumbling. Their relationship flourished. And they learned to love. This is back to that screenplay. And the boy became a man with hips. And those hips kept walking. So where was it? So that's the intro. And then I'll be talking Game of Thrones. Then we'll talk about any factoids that came up during Game of Thrones or lists or anything like that. Tom and Pounce will make an appearance. Then the prayers to the old gods and the new. So we'll be here for at least like an hour and a half plus. And the whole thing is, if you're new, that gives you plenty of time to fall asleep, right? You say, okay, well, you're easing me into bed for 15 minutes, getting me comfortable. And it'd say, right, like the rumbling, like a great rock tumbler in the sky. That's what I used to say. That was one of my great belief systems my imaginary friend taught me. When I'd say, Mama, Papa, what about all the thunder? It's the gods bawling or whatever. Now, Bill, my imaginary friend, would say, Shh, get over here, kid. They ain't bawling up there. They're rock tumbling. And now also Bill was Bill was also, worked for a rock tumbling company. Because they said, Bill, what's rock tumbling? That's how I used to talk as a kid. And Bill said, it's the hottest new craze. Only the kids, you've heard of rock and roll, right? Kind of, Bill. This is rocks actually rolling in a barrel, and
You know how, hey kid, have you ever noticed how boring rocks are? Well, some are cool. Like the whole Game of Thrones is season hinged on rocks, technically. Hey kid, I'm here. Just say, sure. Oh yeah, they're so boring. Like as boring as a sleep podcast. Well, actually, Bill, that would make up, it would be, I guess it's a paradox, but the interestingness of rocks could help people fall asleep. So I think I think you're devaluing the paradoxical nature of that relationship. Oh, sorry. Yeah, totally, man. Rocks are the dullest. One thing about rocks is, Bill, that I noticed, they're just not shiny. That's right, kid. Have you ever wondered if there's a prolonged process, agonizingly slow, like an agonizingly slow, kid, where you could learn about the power of sand and sanding, and then one day, eventually, where you learn grit through grit, kid. That's what real rock tumblers do. I just thought of that. I got to rework my pitch. Learning grit through grit, rock tumbling. Well, could you use True Grit, or is that probably trademarked? Probably trademarked, kid. But that's a good one. True Grit, through grit, rock tumbling. I think I liked your first one better, but eventually the rocks are shiny and polished. So that was my point. True Grit, through grit. I think that's, Bill, that's your thing. Rock tumbling. Yeah, Bill, would you like to buy a rock tumbler? I have the newest edition. The Sonic Rock Roller, it's a Rebel edition. It's actually not even for sale, Bill, anywhere. But I could get you, really. Yeah, I could put you in a rock tumbler today. Please don't. Well, maybe that would polish up my pitches. Bill, this is really turning into a long intro, but have you ever thought about a podcast with just items in a rock tumbler to put people to sleep? Never thought of it. We could call it True Grit Through Grit, and maybe I'll actually do this. What items would you put in a rock tumbler to relax people? Well, I'm most interested in word tumbling because I thought that would be a good metaphor for the podcast. Turns out it's letter tumbling. Whether you use boggle, cubes, or things. What about 20-sided die? Oof, Bill, you're reading. Maybe would you like to go into the sleep podcast, experimental sleep, art-based experimental sleep podcast business? I think I would. All right, True Grit Through Grit. That's Bill and I's future podcast. Anyway, I'm here to take your mind off stuff. If you're new, went off the rails, and I'm just trying, don't be careful of rock tumblers that go off the rails because they're barrel-like shaped. So anyway, this is a podcast to take your mind off stuff and keep you company as you fall asleep. You don't have to listen, and there's no pressure to fall asleep. And be here over an hour and a half tonight to keep you company as you drift off. Fall asleep at your leisure. And see how it goes. And now most people, 99% of people that are regular listeners to the podcast, which is a couple 100,000 people, like they say, so a couple 100,000 people have actually told me. It took 2 or 3 times before I realized that this podcast was, it was like whatever just happened for the past 12 minutes. And then I realized I could fall asleep and it works great. So if you're new, give it a few tries. I really hope it can help. If it doesn't, check out sleepwithmepodcast.com/no thank you for other options. But I do want to help. I've been there. That's the thing. And I strive and I yearn. I work very hard on the show because I'd like to keep you company and help you fall asleep. Thanks for coming by. And here's a couple of ways we keep the show going.